Hello, my name is Rabbi Abram, and I gave this sermon on February 12th. In the first century of the Common Era, the Romans had a problem. The Romans had a grand and glorious empire spanning from Europe to the Middle East. And now everyone within Roman Empire were considered Romans. And this wasn't bad. In fact, it was really good because Romans were entitled to rights and privileges. All law codes that Romans developed were designed for every village, town, and city of their entire empire. Every region had, of course, its own unique culture, climate, and history, but everyone was subject to Roman law. And these laws attempted to be equitable. For example, no matter where you lived, if you were poor, you were allowed a monthly allotment of oil. However, the problem begins when a group of people will not accept the oil because it was tainted. Not tainted because it tasted bad. It tasted fine. It was tainted because it was not sacred. The Romans were further flummoxed by the fact that this group did not pertain to one region, but seemed to have pockets of people everywhere. And so we find in the Roman law code something very rare, an exception to the rule. The Romans decide that a people called the Judeans would receive money instead of oil. And while a person reading a Roman law code may not find an exception of providing coins instead of oil that big of a deal, I find this moment incredibly profound. Without realizing it, or maybe they did realize it, but before its time, the Romans were recognizing that a group can have more than one identity. The Judeans are both Roman and Jewish. They weren't necessarily an ethnicity or a nationality. In fact, there were no words for what they were except Judean. Philo, a first century Judean philosopher, found himself arguing this distinction to the Roman Emperor Gaius. And Philo told Gaius, "My native land is entitled to share in your favor. It is not one city only that would be benefited by you, but tens of thousands of them in every region of the habitable world." A dual identity may be something we can fathom now. In fact, many of us share many different identities. For example, I am Jewish, I'm American, and I love wearing flannel. 3 identities. Sharing multiple identities is a construct developed in modernity. Back then, if you weren't Roman, then you were most likely an enemy of Rome, or at least not a Roman citizen. And during that time, flannel wearers were certainly enemies. However, we see this small moment where Rome recognizes another identity and makes an exception to the rule because of them. And for Judaism, this isn't the first time that a law code helped define its identity. As Jews, we all identify with the shared experience of the Israelites escaping bondage from Egypt. However, at the time, we were a people without a kingdom, a country, or a nationality. And these are normally the institutions that provide rules and govern. So something incredibly significant happens to a people who exist outside the normal government structure, and we see it right here in this week's Torah portion, Mishpatim. Mishpatim means judgments, and this whole portion has a nickname of the Covenant Code. The Israelites have been wandering the desert for 10 weeks, and they find themselves in the base of Mount Sinai. Moses has gone up and brought down the 10 Commandments for the Israelites. But the 10 Commandments were just the beginning, because it is in this portion that the Israelites come to understand that God is giving them a law code full of new rules. Rules that look oddly like the ones a king would provide their subject. There are rules of property, moral behavior, worship, injuries, and rituals, all in this portion. And it's here that something incredibly innovative is happening. Since the Israelites are God's chosen people and are a nation of priests among the world, they are expected to follow this law code no matter where they go. This is both wonderful and problematic. The Israelites must follow this covenant, and each individual is responsible for it. This is a covenant which makes moral behavior a mandate from God. No matter where the Israelites reside, they are obligated to follow this law code. And this experience, the belief in a shared personal moral code, is how a people develop an identity that transcends nationality or ethnicity. This is the argument that Philo found himself having with the Roman emperor. And to my surprise, Gaius accommodates the Judeans and changes the rules to include them, which is a validation of the Israelites' law code from when they got it at Mount Sinai. And as I mentioned, following a collective law code that guides moral behavior was problematic as well. The covenant code and the tens of thousands of pages of rules that came after it made the Israelites, the Judeans, the Hebrews, the Jewish people apart from, rather than a part of, the societies they lived in. It made it difficult for Jews to celebrate and participate in the holidays and affairs of the place where they resided. Jews have been branded as the other, and the other can easily become a scapegoat for a nation in crisis. This, too, in its way, strengthened the identity of the Jewish people. It wasn't easy for us to observe these laws in the wilderness of Sinai, but it was much harder to observe them while abiding in a kingdom, a country, or a nation that does not share our values. Following a collective law code made us more than just a moral people. The covenant fire-hardened the Jewish people. It forced us to truly understand the value of community, and it drew us closer together. We believe in our law code not only to lead personal moral lives, but to honor all of those who gave themselves in pursuit of making sure these laws were remembered, shared, and celebrated. And when our Israelite ancestors received this law code, they did so from a God who was awesome and that filled them with dread. And yet we celebrate that today, because today we understand the good that the covenant did for us and much of Western society. The good continues. Instead of completely assimilating into the country we live in or forcing ourselves to participate in Judaism without the influence of the outside world, we found a home in embracing multiple identities. We choose to be more than one thing. And here in the United States, we experience democracy by joining the covenant that we celebrate with the place that we love. And just as the Israelites were innovative in following a collective law code, we too are innovative in understanding our identity as Jews. Thank you.